dying from heat and hallucinations. He survived Trial 1 until Chief whispered, "None." The air shimmered like molten glass, each breath searing his throat. The sun above wasn't a gentle yellow disk. It was a cruel white furnace. Sand, red as old blood, stretched forever in every direction. The horizon boiled in waves of heat, tricking the eyes into seeing water where there was only death. Eric staggered, his boots sinking into the soft grit. Every step felt like walking in molten lead. His skin blistered under the unrelenting glare, sweat evaporating before it could cool him. He had already stopped counting the hours. Time was meaningless in the trial grounds. They had stripped him of armor, canteen, and shade, leaving only a loose desert tunic, torn in places, and a thin ceremonial sash marked with his trial number, 1. The hallucinations began halfway through the first day. Shapes moved in his peripheral vision. Sometimes a figure walking beside him, sometimes a shadow that slithered across the sand. A voice called his name, soft and sweet, the voice of his sister who had died years ago. He forced himself not to answer, knowing that to follow that sound was to wander off the path and never return. He stumbled upon a sun-bleached skeleton by midday, a failed candidate from years past. The skull was tilted upward as if staring at the sky in disbelief. Its trial sash had faded to white. Eric took it as a warning. By the second night, the cold cut like knives, the desert turning from furnace to freezer. He wrapped his thin tunic tighter and forced himself to keep moving. Stopping meant sleep. Sleep meant death. When the trial master's horn finally sounded, it felt unreal. Eric crawled the last 100 paces to the black stone gate that marked the end of Trial 1. The others who had made it, only 7 from an original 40, stood silent in the shade, eyes hollow, lips cracked and bleeding. Beyond them, in the tent of the High Chief, lay water, food, and cool darkness. Eric stepped inside. The tent was heavy with incense, the air cool against his fevered skin. The High Chief, robed in gold-threaded black, regarded him with unreadable eyes. The chief's face was lined like old parchment, lips pursed as if weighing a life in silence. "You survived the first trial," the chief said at last, his voice a low rumble. "The heat did not claim you." Eric's knees nearly gave way in relief. He had made it. He could drink. He could rest. But then the chief leaned forward, resting his hands on the carved obsidian table between them. His eyes narrowed. "Trial 1, he murmured, as if tasting the words. Then, in a whisper that cut sharper than the desert wind, he said, "None." The word struck harder than any blow. Eric's parched mind tried to grasp its meaning. What does that mean?" he croaked. The chief did not answer. The tent guard stepped forward. They took Eric by the arms, not roughly, but with the quiet finality of men who had done this before, and began to lead him away from the shade. The others, the 7 survivors, watched in silence. None met his gaze. One of them, a tall woman with braided hair caked in dust, shook her head slowly, pity in her eyes. Outside, the desert heat slapped him again, stealing what breath he had left. He twisted against the guards, his voice cracking. "I survived. I passed your trial." The chief emerged from the tent, his shadow long in the rising sun. "The trial of heat tests more than endurance," he said, voice carrying across the sand. "We watch for signs. We listen to the wind around you. We measure your steps in the silence of the dunes. And for you," he paused, "the desert gave me none." It was then Eric realized this was not about survival alone. They sought something else, something unseen. Strength, cunning, a certain spark, and in their eyes, he had none. The guards dragged him past the black stone gate, not toward the city's cool streets, but toward the barren cliffs beyond. In his heat-fogged mind, the hallucinations returned. This time, The figures weren't illusions. They were shapes standing on the cliff edges, tall and unmoving, watching, waiting, and as they pulled him closer, he understood the true cruelty of the trials. Sometimes death was a mercy compared to what came after a whisper of none.